Welcome to the Opinionated Geek podcast. I actually did it properly this time. I didn't have to worry about the mics and having to talk in silence on the stream anyway. But anyway, I gotta fly in here. I'm starting to get this, the still need to work on, some stuff. Like the blue screen. I need to spend the money and get, Elgato, the one that they have, because it's nice and big. It's actually the perfect color. I don't think this is exactly the perfect color. Uh, so we just basically do what we have to do. But I think I'm getting the lighting down a lot better. It's much more natural. It's not like super bright in my face. Uh, Pointing out all the oils and stuff that reflects off of it, because I shouldn't have to wear makeup doing a podcast. Uh, but anyway, this is probably gonna be another quick one. Uh, but it is what it is. There's just not a whole lot of news and stuff that I've been doing really. But we'll start off with a game that I played this last weekend, and that is Pandemic: Reign of Cthulhu. Now, I've played Pandemic games before. In fact, yeah, I think I said last podcast, we played it to death to the point where we're just exhausted from it. So this was kind of like a new experience, but not. It was old but new. So how this one differs is there's no outbreaks per se with this version. So how it goes about it is and I'm not a Lovecraft fanatic, so I'm sure I'm going to get the pronunciations wrong and stuff. But how it works is you start off with everybody in one location, and instead of having it being the world, it's towns. And in these towns, uh, there is portals. There's a portal in each town, and the idea is you don't want the Shoggoth to get into the portals. And how the Shoggoth uh, appear is it's like the outbreak card in the original Pandemic. So you turn that over and it basically says put Shoggoth in the town that's on the bottom of the other deck. So basically and then you basically turn that over, put it wherever that town says, and then basically you have the Shoggoth in that town. And then basically every time I forget how it works, but oh yes, that's what it is. Uh on the where you do your you basically get cult members too as well. I'm trying to figure out how to do this and say it properly. So you got cult people, and every time you turn over a card on the second one, that says, okay, a cult member goes in this town. And of course, you can't have more than 3 cult members in a town. Once you have 3 cult members, then it's kind of like a gathering, in that you can basically summon a old one, I believe. Yeah, I think that's what it is. So basically, you keep on moving those guys out. I guess this is the problem when you only played it a couple times. You don't know the rules right off the top of your head. But essentially, you want to continue to get rid of cult members. Because once you've run out of cult members, like if you don't have any cult members to put back on the board, you lose the game. And then every time you turn the card over to put more cult members on the board, there's a little symbol on some of the cards, not all of them, but some of them. When that happens, you basically have it says it's the Shoggoth get to move one location. So essentially, their job is to get into the portals, which again awakens an old one as well. And I forget what it is. I think it's like six or seven old ones. Once you awaken all those, then the rest just basically uh just get awakened, and basically you lose the game too. So again, multiple ways to lose and only like one way to win. The difficult thing about this is with the original pandemic, if I remember correctly, once you cleared a location and or cured a location, once you cleared off the board in that location, you're good. Nothing can spawn and get an outbreak over in that area again. With this game, they can still get cult members over there and still make you lose. So they actually do have one card that I pulled during my game, which allowed you to nullify a town. But as far as I know, that's the only way you can do it. And I'm not even sure how many cards like that are in the deck. It could be only that one card. So overall, I feel like this is a very, it's a little bit, no, I shouldn't say it's a little bit, because we've we've been able to beat Pandemic quite a few times. We played this one 2 times, and we weren't. No, it, I'm sure it was more than two. Because like within the first round of our first game, we had two of the old ones already turned over. So that's how difficult the game can be. Uh, but we just bad luck of the dice, bad I should say bad turn of the cards. But overall, it's a definitely interesting. It's not too far from Pandemic, but I guess it's far enough. It's kind of like the Game of Thrones Catan. It's not really that much different, but it adds that little element that actually makes it a little bit more fun. But overall, it's still in the end Pandemic because you lose at the game a lot. But yeah, it's an interesting take. I would say, if you're into the Cthulhu stuff, I would say get this instead of the regular Pandemic. One thing that I loved about it though was the color scheme. Color scheme is very cool. But then again, apparently that is a traditional thing, because even Wormwood is doing some for Halloween. They're doing some Cthulhuan uh, dice holders for a Kickstarter, and even they got that this really cool blue color that you can get inscribed in words, and I would really like that, but it's very expensive, so I'm not gonna bother getting it. Uh, but yeah, that's what I played. Maybe next time when we do board games, I can actually play. We can actually attempt to learn my other Cthulhu game that I have, which what is it called? I forget what the heck it's called. I leave all my board games over at the other person's house, and it's like the horror. Dang it, I can't remember it. Anyway, I guess we'll move on to news, and yeah, so we'll get on to what I feel is I guess it's a topic. I don't know, but Rockstar, they've come out, and also employees have come out and said they were working 100-hour work week uh, to get Red Dead Redemption 2 prepared. So my thing is like, yes, that would suck, but according to Rockstar, uh, it was all volunteer. Now, I've also heard other commenters, or commentators, I should say. Like, I'm not sure if that's the proper word or not. They basically said, yeah, it might be volunteer, but when it comes to continuing on with Rockstar, they're probably going to not, they might they might be passing up an opportunity, and they'll basically focus on the people that actually work their butt off for them over the people that said, you know what, I need to go home. And that could be true. Could be true. And I also agree with other people that said, just with what GTA 5 Online makes every day or every month or whatever, they can easily hire the crew that can actually make this game no matter what. Bottom line. So if they needed more crew, they should have got more crew. Although at that late stage of the game, if you didn't have the crew to begin with, then coming in, you might be a little not know what the heck's going. You don't know the flow of the team and all that jazz. So it might not work, but that's when you need to make sure that you actually have everything you need ahead of time. But I also feel like it's one of those things where it's probably everything's fine at the beginning. And of course, as it ramps up, they're like, we still got plenty of time. We still got plenty of time. And then all of a sudden, just because of human error, we were like, oh my God, this game's got to be out, within 2 or 3 months. We need to start pushing. And it's human nature to, I think, probably to feel like we have a whole bunch of time to do something. And then all of a sudden, we're scrambling to catch up because we're dumb and we wait till the last minute to do everything. But one thing that somebody else pointed to the fact, and I don't know why I didn't think this, but I imagine this is the way it is. But apparently, when it comes to gaming studios, it starts off very small, and then it does ramp up, and then they hire more people. But then once that game is out, they fire a whole bunch of people because they don't need them anymore. And then the cycle continues where it does the whole, okay, now we're starting to do a small, getting the ideas down for the next game, and then it slowly ramps back up. And it's basically does this every time with every game. So a I would not want to be in the video game industry unless, of course, I was like one of those head people that actually gets to keep my job. But if if this is the way the video game world works when it comes to you working your butt off to make this game and you basically get fired after every game, I don't think I would want to be uh, a part of the video game industry. And then, of course, the way the video game industry's run, it's not run off of the profits. It's run off of can we get people to finance it to make the game, and then hopefully they continue to back us until the game's out. Otherwise, what happens is what happened to Telltale is you don't have the money because your financial backers have backed out and now you can't make a game, which it should be. You make a game, you make profit. With that profit, you use it to make a new game, a bigger game, and so on and so forth. And you use your own dang money. And I know with the AAA games, a lot of people are like, well, then we wouldn't be able to get these awesome games. It's like, personally, I don't care. I would rather have cool uh indie type games than these AAA games. Personally, because we've seen what happens. Like look what happened with Konami and Metal Gear, and with Kojima. It's like Kojima just takes too long to make a game, and he spends way too much money, and now we have Konami basically making crappy games and getting rid of their main guy because we feel like we need to have these epic games all the time. You don't need to have a beautiful looking game to have an epic, cool game. You can have really cool stories without the amazing graphics and amazing effects and all that stuff. That's just me personally. And it's one of the things where it's like, if I have a choice between another video game crash because the money's not there for because we've just decided that all the uh, publishers are going to be like Konami, and it's like we're not spending no money for it, so there's not going to be any games. I would rather have the cool indie games than these AAA titles any day of the week. And hopefully, with the whole indie platform, we'll never have a video game crash anymore. But we might have a AAA crash, but the thing is, this I feel like the cycle would revert back, and the indie people would become the next AAA people, and then we have a new set of indie people, and so on and so forth. And it just it's a never ending cycle. But for me, it's like I wouldn't do the 100-hour work week, but you know, if if they feel like, and if it was volunteer, if it was actually volunteer, uh, I don't see a problem with somebody doing that. But not for me. And if ever everybody gets fired anyway, it doesn't matter. And don't work those 100-hour work weeks. Just go to a different company that's ramping up for that new game. But anyway, that's my kind of thoughts on that. I don't think it's a huge deal. In fact, we'll continue to talk about it as fans of video games. But then it's what do you want? Do you want these people to work these hours, or do you want just good games and not have to do make sure horses have balls that shrink and get bigger depending on the weather? It's stupid stuff like that. So it's like we don't need all that crap. Just make the game uh fun. That's all. But that's just my opinion. I know a lot of people are like, well, we need more, video game unions and all that stuff. Like, no, I don't think we do. I think people just need to put their money where their mouth is. If they don't want these 100-hour work weeks, then don't buy the game. And guess what? They won't be making these games that do this stuff. And they'll know, most likely, that this is why we're not buying your game. But that won't happen because we, as people and consumers, want what we want. And in the end, we really don't care how we get it. Although we'll be the keyboard warriors and say how angry we are, though. All right. Super Nintendo World is starting now, officially, to being built in Hollywood, Disney. I forget what it is. Is it Disneyland or Disney World? Oh, I'm sorry. It's not Disney. It's Universal Studios Hollywood. But it's going to be in the Hollywood section, and not the Florida. But my one friend was like, hold on a sec. Building work on the Super Nintendo World area at Universal Studios Hollywood has officially begun. The news comes after reports indicated that an entire Zelda world is planned for Island of Adventure at Universal Studios Orlando. Okay, there we go. While the construction on Nintendo attractions at Japan Universal Studios Park is set to finish in 2020, work in other parks will be completed at a later date. But rest assured, Nintendo's presence in parks like Universal Studios Hollywood guarantees a fair share of cool rides and attractions both for individuals and for families. For now, there is no further details, but only time will tell. We will know more about this park in the future, and that comes from ZeldaDungeon.net. So yeah, so Japan's is set to finish in 2020. So we know about Japan's one, but we don't know when it's going to finish for any of the U.S. stuff. But at least it started, so if you're a humongous Nintendo fanboy, you'll be able to get your Mario on. But I'm not that much of a fan anymore. Kind of gotten over the whole platformers. They're kind of boring, and they're yeah, they're just not for me anymore. I'd rather have an RPG or even a really good single player adventure that's heavily story driven, like an Uncharted or something. I enjoyed those. Uh, but yeah, so that's working. Alrighty, and now I'll get on to something that I've recently watched. Uh, I've only watched 2 episodes, but I started watching The Haunting of Hill House, and I'll probably watch more tonight. And my overall thoughts of it is, I'm not a horror or scary movie type person. I don't like the cheap tricks, the jump scares. Uh, it's using cheap tactics to simulate the idea of being scary or frightened, but that's not what jump scares do. All they're doing is surprising you, and just because there's something ugly on the screen doesn't mean that you're scared of it. It just means they surprised you. That's it. But I also don't like the because you're constantly in your head trying to prepare for jump scares, you're constantly on the edge and basically stressed the whole time. And I got enough stress in my life. I don't need artificial stress added to that, uh, or just overall added stress. And you know what I mean. So I typically stay away from horror or scary movies. But I figured, why not? We'll check this out because everybody's kind of talking about it. And so far from watching the first 2 episodes, I like the overall story to it, but when it comes to the scary stuff, they're doing the basic garbage. The only thing that I thought was kind of cool that kind of could have messed with your mind a little bit was when a little girl was sleeping on the couch because her mom uh went away. Uh, the mom was sleeping next to her on the floor, and I guess trying to so-called keep her safe as a parent. She naturally it's like saw the kid was asleep. It's like what, I'm not sleeping down here on the floor, and she just went up probably to bed. And of course, the kid wakes up and you see her eyes get all big and stuff, and they don't show like a POV of what she's looking at. They just show like as a uh, profile view of the kid, and then of course they pan out, and there's a just it's a complete black. You don't really see any detail whatsoever, but it's basically a looks like a lady like hovering over her, looking down, and her hair's just hanging down, and it because there's no detail, it gets the mind working as into what is the little girl seeing. And to me it makes not seeing something helps the imagination become more uh afraid and more scared than actually showing the thing that you're supposed to be scared of. Because I guess because your worst thoughts are most likely or what's going to kind of arise, whereas if they show it, it's most likely not what you expected, or what you did expect. It's like, well, I don't know. I don't know how to really describe it, but it's always better, I feel, to let your imagination run instead of actually showing the actual thing. So that's the biggest issue, because with this the haunting stuff, it's it's your typical scary movie stuff. Overall, I haven't seen anything out of the ordinary. Uh I guess one of the cool things is there's apparently, I'm not sure if it's like every scene, but all the flashbacks where they, and I'll talk about what I mean by flashbacks in a second here, but there's supposed to be like ghosts hidden throughout that you can actually spot. So it's kind of like a Where's Waldo thing. My guess is that's the only really cool thing that it's got like going for it. But overall, when it comes to the haunting stuff, it's like it's your typical scary movie stuff. But what I do like about the show is they kind of go over uh the initial thing fairly quickly, like within the first episode, what kind of happens, and then they go forward to when the kids are adults and the father is older and all that stuff. So it goes over that, which I think is it's kind of cool, because I feel like they're doing like a Walking Dead thing, where The Walking Dead isn't about the zombies, it's about the interactions with the people. There just happens to be zombies. And that's what I feel like this show's kind of doing, where it's, yes, there was a haunting, and yes, they went through a bad experience, but overall, it's, from these first two episodes, I'm sure it's going to get more haunt like scary and later in the show. But right now, it's more about the relationships between this family that's basically had a falling out because of what they've experienced at this house as older people. But I imagine the further you get into the show, the more the past is going to become the present type of thing. Uh, but yeah, it's it's all right. That's the only to me the only really benefit, I guess, is just that aspect of it. Other than that, it's your typical scary movie stuff. So we'll see. Maybe we might check out some other stuff, because I'll be honest with you, because I'm not a scary horror fan, I haven't seen a lot of the so-called classics. I've seen maybe bits and pieces of Hellraiser. I've might have seen bits and pieces of uh what is it called? Nightmare on Elm Street. I know I've seen bits and pieces of Friday the 13th. But yeah, I haven't actually seen them like all the way through. So I'm pretty much one of them people. It's like I guess it's kind of like one of them things where it's like, what, you haven't seen Star Wars, you haven't seen Indiana Jones, stuff like that. Uh, and that's the way I am with the horror and scary movies and type stuff. I did surprisingly I did see Saw though. I even saw Saw 2 as well. And then I I think I might have tried to watch Saw 3, and that's when they kind of lost me. They kind of lost me on the second one too. The second one turned into just a straight up horror, like a gore fest type movie. But I really like the first Saw. Now, naturally, that was, it had a bit of gore, but I liked it. It was an actual psychological thing, more so than straight up horror. And then they basically kind of turned it into, Saw 2 was basically Cube. I don't know if anybody's ever seen that movie, but I remember my friend brought it over to a house one time when we lived in the old farmhouse, and I guess it's still stuck with me because I still remembered it. But and I've recently, not too long ago, had seen it again. I'm just like, it's really cheesy, but it wasn't meant to be, I guess, a great film. But that's what Saw 2 was to me. It's like you're trapped in a house where, in a cube, you're trapped in a cube and you're trying to basically get out. And that's basically all Saw 2 was. And then I can't even remember what Saw 3 was about, but the original Saw was really good. In fact, I actually bought it because I liked it that much. But yeah, not a huge horror scary fan. But anyway, I think that's all I got to talk about. Well, we'll play some more Kingdom Come definitely by next week. I'm going to a Halloween party this Saturday, so we won't be playing Dungeons and Dragons. But next the weekend after that, we'll definitely be playing Dungeons and Dragons. But yeah, we'll play some more games and actually get some stuff out there. And hopefully, there's going to be actually something like a bunch of news that I can actually talk about that people might find interesting, or I might find interesting. That'd be the more important thing if I find it interesting. But anyway, here's another half an hour one. People are gonna love this because I know a lot of people. I'm weird. I like long stuff. When I go on YouTube and I search for something, I'm just like, it's 5 minutes, 5 minutes, 5 minutes. Oh, this one's an hour and a half. I'm clicking on the hour and a half one. It's just the way I am. I hate short videos. That's like it blows me away that I'm not sure if they're they're paying YouTube or there's some handshaking going on type of thing. But it blows my mind when I search for a review and the first couple ones that pop up are IGN and GameStop. They're both like 5 minutes long, and I'm like, how can you review a game in 5 minutes? Like an actual good review. These are apparently professional uh uh gaming journal type websites. They should be going in depth. They shouldn't be just doing like little 5 minute clips about a game, whether it's good or not, within 5 minutes. I'm not saying they don't cram a lot of stuff in the 5 minutes, but I want to know a lot more than what they offer. But anyway, that is all for today. And now I'm going to go make myself some dinner. Well, I need to go get some stuff for dinner, but then I'll be making dinner. Anyway, for anybody that watched, thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all later. Bye.